Okay, so now that you kind of understand the different ways that you can go about embossing on your KSF3, I wanted to quickly walk through some different troubleshooting tips that you can utilize and use throughout your various jobs that you decide to do. So the first tip is that you can wet your paper. This isn't something I generally like to do because when you're printing 1 to 200 invitations, wetting each piece of paper to me isn't very feasible. And if I'm at that point, that's when I'd want to be outsourcing probably. But if you're in a bind and you've already committed to this and it helps, then do it. You can literally just take a spray bottle and spritz your paper to get it a little damp, and then try to print. It'll kind of basically make your paper a little softer and a little bit more amenable to taking that impression. The next tip is packing. We've already walked through this a little bit, but experimenting with different packing, different densenesses of the paper of packing that you're using, and playing with that can help you kind of troubleshoot various different aspects. Or you can spot pack like we showed in the 3D embossing module, where you can add just packing just behind certain areas of your design. The third point is that you can always try different paper types if that is available to you. I find that softer paper works better for this. And when you're first starting out, if you're just experimenting and playing around and maybe you have different papers that are part of what you offer, maybe you test out each sheet of paper and see which one works best, so that you know when you are referring to clients what to use and what the limitations are of those jobs, that they know this is the paper option that you have to use with embossing. The next step, if things aren't coming out right, if you are printing and the impression isn't showing up right at all, it's very likely that your male and female plates are not aligned well, that something shifted when you put them on the press. So take them off and redo it. Realign your plates, re-adhere them, and see if that fixes it. The next point is to talk to your plate maker. I mentioned this in the 3D module as well, but I had an issue with that die when I ordered it. I told them that I was printing on the handmade paper and that it was 250 GSM, but it still didn't work right. And so they allowed me to mail back my die with my paper, and they fixed it for me. So if you're having an issue or if you have questions, talk to your plate maker. Lastly, just like with any foil job, playing around with the different variables on your press can result in different effects. So adding packing, we already discussed that a little bit, but increasing or decreasing your heat can also make a difference. I find with pretty much all embossing that having heat helps aid the print better. That's why I typically do use heat with my embossing, minus the one example I showed you, just as an example for if you want something cheaper and if it's really simple and you can do it without heat, that you can go that cheaper route. But typically I do like heat with embossing, and I do like to bump my heat up pretty high. I find that it helps me get crisper results. So if you're having any issues, run through this troubleshooting list and see if it... Okay, friends, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I really hope this course helped you demystify embossing and gave you the confidence to start exploring it for yourself. If you'd like to keep learning, I've linked below my foil printing course along with a few extra resources I think you might find helpful as you continue building your skills. And most importantly, don't rush this process. Start simple, test things slowly, and give yourself space to learn as you go. I'm really glad you're here. Thank you again.